All right. Good morning, people of YouTube. So this time we are back again today with another EX3 deck profile that kind of cycles into the start of BT11 because this deck is a deck that I expect to do pretty well into the BT11 format. Um, that being said, your worst matchup is going to be Black War Greymon, and that is expected to be one of the best decks coming into the next format. But we do have a lot of tools to help us mitigate some of the problems that deck provides for us. Mainly, the main problem with that deck being is they can protect themselves from your security bombs, but they can only do that a finite number of times. So this deck is kind of geared towards whittling their stack down and then chipping through. Um, and then being able to just outright beat all of the other matchups by them breaking themselves into your security while you rush them down. So this is a very strong deck, and it's a very reactive deck. And it's one of those decks that you will always run the risk of playing against at a tournament and just getting swept by it. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into some of the card choices and yeah, if you guys like this kind of content, make sure you guys like and subscribe, and here we go. So for the Digitama, the one you want 4 of is the Demi-Meramon. In the EX3 format, you only need 4 eggs, and this is the one that I'm going to play 4 of. Whenever we go to BT11, we might consider bumping up to 5, and in that case, I would be considering the Xiaomon. So what this card does is if you have 10 or more cards in your trash, you gain Retaliation. And this card is one of those cards that can help us break a Black or Greymon stack. So I do really like it. It forces them to burn up one of their protections, and if we had something else, then then we can kind of kill it from there. So it's also really good into a bunch of other matchups, like if you're playing against Bloomlord and you have a Gazimon with this under it, then your opponent will think twice about clearing it. And that's always really nice. This is just a phenomenal card. So going into the level 3s, we got 4 copies of Gabumon from BT2. It's one of the best draw cards that purple has ever seen. We got 4 copies of the Gazimon, that's the memory blocker, because this card is super important into matchups like Bloomlord. And it's just overall a phenomenal card, and one of the rookies that you're bringing back off of Nailbone most of the time. Next, we play 2 copies of the Elecmon from BT6. This is the one that's on deletion. You delete an opponent's level 3 Digimon. This card is absolutely phenomenal at clearing your opponent's own memory blockers, or cards like Psychmon, and things like that. This card is absolutely phenomenal. And if you get into a situation where you can get a Xiaomon under this, then you can kind of ram this into your opponent's like big stack and then clear a small body afterwards. So that's really funny. Elecmon is just a necessary component in purple decks moving forward. Then for a couple one-ups, I got 1 copy of the Starter Deck 6 Gabu. This card is really nice in the EX3 format because it is another really good inheritable to have under the Eismon that helps you filter your hand and accrue those 7-cost options in your trash. This is a great card, but I think going into the next format, I'm going to cut it for 1 more of either of these cards, either the Gazimon from BT10 or the Gazimon X from BT9. So Gazimon from BT10, what this does is it's basically the exact same effect as Xiaomon on the level 2, except it's on a level 3 inheritable. And doubling up on that effect is really nice. Retaliation is good. The Gazimon X antibody is really kind of key for your burst turns. So if you're about to go into a Beelstar, evolving into this will let you draw a card and then trash 3. And if you have 7-cost options in your trash, whenever you drop the Beelstar, they basically count as being in your hand as well, right? Because of the Beelstar being able to just play them back, or add them back from trash and then play 1. So if you are digging for a specific piece, like a good example in the tournament just a little while ago that I was participating in, I really needed a Nailbone. So I was able to Digivolve into this, and then I knew I had already seen like 23-ish cards of my deck, and I hadn't seen one yet. So I knew the odds of me hitting one in the next 4 cards were statistically likely, and I did, and that ended up winning me the game. So the Gazimon X is really good for digging. It can make Beelstars cheaper, and I really, really like it for just getting more cards in your hand and more cards in your trash. You typically want to kind of save this if you're going against Bloomlord until you can get a second or even a third one of these BT3 Gazis in play. But if you're in a position where you're about to swing one of these into your opponent's security anyway, then digivolving this into the Gazi X is just the optimal play. It helps you get more filtering, and it's just a really good card, and it's performing much better than I expected to whenever I initially put it in the deck. So going into the the rest of the level 3s, my bad, we got the 3 copies of the Sister Mont Blanc. This is the on-play, discard 1, draw 2. This is really good in a deck like Beelstar because you can just pitch your 7-cost options. It's phenomenal. You'll never trigger the decoy, but this card is absolutely great to open, and it's good to see in the early to mid-game. I don't think you have room for 4 of it, and I'm honestly considering cutting one to make room for, or cutting one of these and the Gabu to go up 1 and 1 on the Gazi and the Gazi X antibody. But for right now in the EX3 format, the Sister Mont Blanc is really, really nice because we don't really need the double down on the retaliation effects until Black War Greymon hits the market in BT11. So this card is really, really nice. Helps set up your hand. It's a good rookie to, swing with at your opponent's security and all that jazz. I do like the Blanc slot. And that gives you 16 rookies that you can open with. Then you have the 4 scatter modes combined with the Tamers, the memory boost. You have a lot of cards in this deck that you actually want to see in your opening hand. So that's really, really nice for consistency's sake. So going into the level 4s, we got the 4 scatter mode because it's one of the main consistency pieces. We got 2 copies of Ginkaku Promote because this card just wins the game. You will use double Ginkaku Promote a lot of the time, so I think 2 copies of this is necessary. We have the 1 Eismon so that we can discard it and get a free body in play. This card is absolutely phenomenal, and thank you, Bandai, for putting this to 1, because if this card wasn't at 1, I still think this deck would only play like 2 or maybe 3, but this card is absolutely phenomenal, and it would make purple just a lot scarier if this card was at way more than that. And then we got the single copy of the Viomon as a blocker that we can pull back with Nailbone. This is one of the worst cards in the deck, to tell you the truth. It gets blown up more times than I can count. But sometimes it will save you, and I do think it is necessary to play at least 1 in the list in BT11. But if my opinion changes on that, I think this is one of the first cards that gets cut. So that's it for the level 4s. For the high-level Digimon, we just got the 4 copies of Beelstar because this is a Beelstar deck. And then I'm not playing Death Xmon anymore. Instead, I'm deciding to play the Omnimon's Wart Defeat because this card does a couple things for me that Death X didn't do. So what this does is if you hit it in security, your opponent doesn't battle it, and then you get to play this card. That's absolutely fantastic. But if this is in your hand, you can Digivolve this over the Beelstar for just 3 memory, delete one of their Tamers, and then whenever this card dies, you just get to delete any Digimon in play. That's absolutely phenomenal. This card puts pressure on your opponent, and it makes it so that your opponent doesn't want to deal with this body while they have a stack that they want to keep on the field. So this is really, really nice. I do like it. It adds to my security pressure as well as adding to Tamer removal. Like in Black War Greymon, if they get the Yuga in play, or whatever that Tamer's name is that gives the Black War Greymon protection, this deck can have a lot more trouble dealing with it. So you can just go into the Zwart Defeat and then pop that Tamer and kind of deal with it that way. And this is one of the cards that I really want to consider bumping up moving forward. Going into the Tamers. So I got 1 copy of Kiyoshiro from BT9. This card can help you get some extra draws sometimes. And then I have 2 copies of Matt and Sora. So this card, in combination with a Memory Tamer, can just have you just have a bunch of memory. Most of the time, your opponent will have 8 or more cards in hand if it's the mid-game. A lot of the times, you will have 8 or more cards in hand because you're playing purple. And this card is a red and a purple source. That way, if this card is in play and you have an egg in your breeding area, you can use any option card in the list except for Gewalt Schwarmer from your hand. So this is very important for unlocking both of those color requirements, as well as just being a good tamer to get you a bunch of memory at the start of your turn, just for playing the game the way you're supposed to. So I do like all of these cards, and these tamers are super important. So going into the 7 cost options first, we got 4 copies of Fly Bullet. Fly Bullet's nuts. We got 2 copies of Happy Bullet Showering, because we like bullets in this deck. This card is good at dealing with wide boards, as well as if your opponent just has 1 stack in play, this will just kill that stack. So this is just a very fantastic card, and I think 2 of it is the normal for Beelstar. And then I got 1 copy of Direct Smasher. So for those of you that don't know, this card came out in the Ragnalord deck, and it says if you have a Digimon with Legend Arms in its traits in play, you can use it without meeting the color requirements. You're never going to have that, so you actually need to have the Matt and Sora in play, or you're not going to be able to play this card. But if it triggers Insecurity, it just activates its main effect, which is delete one of your opponent's Digimon with the highest DP. So this is a great card to come out of your security. It's like the Happy Bullet Showering, but in reverse. And if your opponent has a wide board and you do have the Matt and Sora in play, and they think they're safe from the Happy Bullet, you can actually grab something back off or from your trash, and then with the Beelstar, and then activate the Direct Smasher off of the Beelstar summon, and then just kill their biggest stack whenever they thought they were safe, and that's just a really, really good play that can catch them off guard. This also makes it so that I have 7 cards in my security that will just straight up delete their Digimon, and then another 3 that will bounce it. Or, I'm sorry, another 6 that will bounce it. Which are the 3 Casitas Breath and the 3 Plasma Decker Launcher. So I do really, really like the 3 and 3 split. Something to note that is that Happy Bullet, or I'm sorry, not Happy Bullet, Fly Bullet only works on level 6 or lower, and Plasma Decker Launcher only works on level 6 or higher. So between the 2 of these, you have a neat little synergy going on between being able to take care of whatever you want. But the Plasma Decker Launcher can cost 5 from your hand in certain situations whenever you do have to start hard casting options. And this is most valuable into decks like Bloom Lord. Against decks like Metal Garuru, I think the Casitas Breath is just much better. But this is better into some of the more specific Tier 1 decks in the format, so I do think it is worth playing the 3-3 split. And I do really like this. This has been working for me. And this just makes it so that I have a lot of security bombs that will just straight up take care of the body whenever your opponent swings. So for the rest of the options, I got 1 copy of Jawalt Chormer. Absolutely fantastic. Never leave home without it. We got 2 copies of Nailbones. I just bumped this down, this format. I think whenever we roll into BT11, this card is going to be a 3 or possibly even 4 of, because the way you're going to want to take care of decks like Black War Greymon is to just outrush them. And in situations where you can just hit a Nailbone or a Zwart Defeat in security against that matchup, you're just in a lot better of a position. And this is one of the cards that helps you just push tempo. So I do really like it. And then for the last 2 cards of the deck, 1 copy of Calling from Darkness, because I'm only allowed to play 1, and then 1 copy of Mist Memory Boost, because I couldn't find room for a second one. In fact, I might even cut this card for another Zwart Defeat, or possibly even another 7-cost option. But this is the deck where it's at right now. And I've been having a lot of fun with it. I've been taking it to my locals the past couple of weeks, and I've been doing really, really well with it. Into a pretty stacked locals, because the St. Louis scene is really, really strong in Bandai-related games, just in general. So, yeah, if you guys have any questions, make sure you guys leave them in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys thought of this deck, and we will see you guys in the next video. Bye, everyone.